It's starting to become clear now, a little bit perhaps, why the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine was telling Ukrainian lawmakers to keep their hands off of Soros NGOs. One of the star witnesses for Adam Schiff in the impeachment is the former Ukrainian ambassador. It said that Trump and the new president of Ukraine spoke about this stuff in the July 25th phone call. They both said that they knew that the ambassador in Ukraine was in with dirty people with our State Department and Ukraine. Multiple sources verify that she told the prosecutor general in Ukraine to keep their hands off of the Soros NGO and various others with the State Department. Is it now a little more clear why she would have said that? Because Soros is working with the State Department. It's not criminal to them, it's the plan. It's also clear why a CIA analyst was involved in the U.S. aid money going to Ukraine. And now is a whistleblower against the president who is looking into that? Or maybe why the main witness in the impeachment are all from the State Department and diplomatic corps. And also, how the intelligence community and FBI has seemingly been operating on their own to bring down Trump. It's because, as Alec Ross said, this operation has now been, quote, institutionalized and will live on. Now, let's move to step two. The step two is when the opportunity emerges, the U.S.-trained activists go into action. Now, I'll talk about the Arab Spring here in a bit, but the opportunity in the Middle East and North Africa was the Tunisian fruit vendor setting himself on fire. For Ukraine, it was when the former president decided to side with Russia over the European Union. That's when all the people that Alec Ross and the State Department had trained went into action on their cue. Because step three is the State Department and their proxies actively support the opposition. Well, this is going to make you laugh. It's so obvious. Under Obama, this was the actual administration policy. But now this happens regardless of the elected administration's policy by the institutionalized deep state. This institutionalized policy is what all the witnesses are talking about in the impeachment trial. Trump is a threat to the institutionalized policy that they have going. And they will not stop doing this policy no matter what president says, no matter who the president is, unless this is revealed and the American people say, enough. Now, as activists and protesters and riots began to overtake the streets in Ukraine, here's Victoria Nuland. She's the Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasian Affairs. She traveled to the Ukraine 3 separate times during that uprising. In December 2013, she was even shown here handing out cookies to the revolutionary activist in the streets. See, the problem is sometimes the revolutionaries are good, sometimes the revolutionary is bad. It doesn't matter to this organization. That same month, I want to remind you, John McCain showed Obama's regime change policy was a bipartisan effort when he went to Ukraine to meet with the Ukrainian opposition. But let's not forget, this is the same John McCain that went over to Syria to meet with the terrorists who later became ISIS, when the administration used this very system to try to overthrow Assad. You want to know why we're there? This is why. The National Endowment for Democracy reported that it spent over $3 million of your tax money in Ukraine for this. In fact, here's the document. We'll be releasing it now on the internet. The question is, this report has been scrubbed from their official website. Why? Why was it scrubbed? And when will the people learn that the internet is forever? Their funding included more than $30,000 to George Soros' Open Society Foundation. Again, it begs the question, why is the U.S. government helping George Soros? What is their ultimate goal here? The answer to those questions lie in the final stage of this plan, which is step 4. Once regime change has occurred, infiltrate the new government with hand-picked civil society leaders. Now, the Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, the one that was handing out the cookies, she was caught red-handed in a leaked phone conversation that we have, discussing how the government needed to manipulate who would become the next Ukrainian prime minister. And surprise, surprise, that man ended up getting the job. But even though they'd been publicly outed manipulating the affairs of a sovereign nation, they didn't stop. They doubled down. We already know that the State Department and the Obama administration as a whole were working to protect a George Soros-funded NGO called the Anti-Corruption Action Center. Soros and the Obama administration were specifically using them to target Ukraine's criminal justice system. Remember, the idea is to have a shadow justice system that could go after the guys who are standing in your way, good or bad, and to protect the people who are on your side. But the coordination didn't stop there. Newly released emails obtained by Freedom of Information Act request shows near weekly communication between Nuland and Soros. This is an email chain from June 1st, 2016, and it shows Soros setting up a call with Nuland for one of their scheduled updates. The next email chain, just a week later, initiated by Soros's organization, details how the State Department and Soros were actively working together on projects relating to Ukraine's criminal justice system. And I want you to look at this and see if you recognize any of the names. Oh, there's the name of the whistleblower.